Well, hello traders and investors. I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. We take a look at these markets doing it from a neoclassical perspective. That means each day we look at these charts and we ask ourselves, did anything significant take place today? Did we come to an area that we can test and get some information? And if so, what was that information? That's neoclassical in a nutshell, supply and demand on the charts. If you like what we do and you want to follow us, just reach up in the right hand corner and subscribe. Anytime content's pushed, you get a notification. As far as what did happen today, let's take a look at the numbers, and the numbers pretty much tell it like it is, and that is not much happened. You had some small movement inside days, right? It was a lot of chop inside. But for the most part, if you look here, you really didn't get anything going on, right? 0.25, it's just flat. If you look at the bonds had a nice run. Oil got sold down on I think it was a Morgan Stanley call. Silver also got clipped pretty good today. These have been taking it on the chin lately, and that was because of the expectations that the dollar was going to rise. But the dollar has actually been going down, and they haven't been able to rise, which ought to tell you something. As far as Europe, down again. It looks like it's going to try to trade lower. Nikkei down as well. You had Shanghai and Hong Kong trying to work higher. Let's go to the charts. S&P, we'll look at the daily chart to start with. And let's pull this over a little bit so you see it all. So on the daily chart, what happened? Nothing, right? What has happened? Nothing. It's pretty, what am I going to say? It's pretty straightforward, right? This doesn't tell you anything. This is an inside day. There's really nothing there. Looks like the volumes hadn't been pulled on this one yet, but the volumes were extremely light again. And so there's really nothing to say about it from that perspective. As I was talking, it looks like the volume did show up. So S&P, light volume, nothing here. Let's look at the Nikkei, not the Nikkei, the NASDAQ. On the NASDAQ, I assume we got about the same, and NASDAQ, just trades sideways, less volume, a little over under, but it doesn't really mean anything here. NDX, probably same thing. Yeah, it looks the same. And Russell, I believe, is going to show exactly the same picture, and it does push a little higher, but same sort of picture. So really nothing here. The only place you're going to see it tonight is over in the world markets. If we go over and look at Europe in particular, you'll see some action there that maybe gives us some idea of what might come next. So Europe trades up, back down, right? Closes down. The volume's a little bit light, but it's trying to get back into this bar. So I think we talked about this last week. This is the key bar. You got the swing point highs over here that were broken. So you got retest regens back in that area, in this area here, which is just below this low. That looks to be where it's trying to head. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets there tomorrow. So Europe looks like it's going to try and trade a little bit lower. If I look at the Swiss market and see if there's any confirmation of that, yeah, slightly. You get a little over under. So look at what happened here. I mean, again, these are very slight. I don't put a lot of weight on this kind of stuff, but you get a push down. You go right back over and then close back under with a little doji. That looks like a continuation bar. Try to trade down again. And then finally, if we go to, let's go to the CACs and see what the French are doing, and that is the same thing. They have the same sort of setup. And finally, I'll look at London for grins to see what's happening there. These guys have been hanging pretty tight, and yeah, they're just kind of coming back in. So nothing major happening anywhere. The only clue that I see out there is the DAX telling us that it's going to try to trade lower with a little bit of a confirmation off the Swiss market. Let's go to the OX markets, because you've actually got some news this week that could move things. And in particular, you've got three things. You've got PMI numbers. You've got the durable goods number, and you've got the Yellen speech on at Jackson Hole. I believe that time is 11 o'clock Eastern time on Friday. And what they're going to move, if they move something, is going to be the currency. So let's flip through the currencies right quick and take a look at them. So Australia hanging at the highs. If I pull over the weekly here, it gets into the breakdown bar, it gets over it, can't get over it, right? Stay over it, I mean. Pulls back in, still trying to go higher, but having a struggle. So Australia trying to work higher. Britain, of course, has been plunged down to the lows. Now, Britain did test at the lows and bounce back. And so this is just, a move to the downside. Now you're getting kind of the consolidation, which usually takes place right after a plunge. You get some sort of consolidation. Issue is going to be can you get back up into the swing point low? That's going to be very hard, most likely. I would think right there where you see that red line is going to be the toughest spot to get back over. Assuming it even get up that far, this thing could just simply break down farther for all we know. It's very weak and probably going to stay that way. If you go to the euro, now the euro has been holding. It had a nice big run up, and of course that puts pressure on those markets. And then now is holding. If you go to the euro on the weekly, this is still in the upper quadrant. So this, if it breaks down, then you can go back down to the lows. But if you just draw it out, right, you kind of got a quadrant down here. And if we take the bulk of the action, it's really in here, and then you have one above it. That's kind of the bulk of where everything is traded. So, is this weak? Is it strong? No, it's just like in the middle. It doesn't really matter. What matters is when it gets to one edge or the other and either fails or succeeds. And so right now that's just bouncing around. If we look at the Swiss currency, pretty much the same thing. They got up there, they tested the high, they were unable to get over it, right? And now they're pulling back in their range. And a light pullback in terms of volume, but again, it's just range trading. Ever since we had the Brexit move, we've had a lot of range trading taking place. The only place that's not true, or actually it's at the edge, is on the Japanese yen. So the Japanese yen gets over right here, these two swing points. If you bring it back to the weekly, the Japanese yen is up there, just broke a swing point on the weekly. And if we bring over the monthly, that high on that retest, regenerate bearish, 96.14, that's the swing point lows high. Last month, got the 94. This month, they're at 96.31. They're over it. Of course, we've got another week or so to go here before the month is out. What is it, about 6 trading days probably. If it stays over it, that's going to be the first nail in the coffin of that big move to the downside. So if in fact this is a turn, in which it right now, it could very well be a turn, right? You got this rolling bottom. Key is going to stay over this or not. If you stay over it and you do it for a couple bars, then that trend that's been down all this time probably is done. And that would be a major event, most likely. And because think about it, the Japanese yen, they've been trying to hold this thing down, and they can't. It's going back up. And so all the QE, all the bond buying, all the buying in the stock market, all of that just isn't working in terms of the currency. And if that currency continues to rise, it's going to put more pressure on the Japanese to do something. And that's something, who knows what that's going to be, right? Because they've already thrown the kitchen sink at this thing. Let's go over to, real quick, I'm going to show you the gold stocks. There was a question about gold. Should they be buying here? The question was on a short-term time frame. No, I wouldn't be buying at this price point. Will it work? Well, it potentially could, but why buy here? I mean, you got a range up here. You got another range back up underneath it, right? And I think it can trade back into these two bars, this bar and that bar. And so, I don't know that I want to get too antsy and try to buy up this high. I'd probably want to let it come back deeper, or at least see if it would come back deeper. And if it does, you're right, there's an outside shot that it comes back at that Brexit bar. Actually, that wasn't the Brexit bar, but that was a big spike up bar. I don't think that was Brexit. I think Brexit was over here, right? I believe it was this bar is Brexit. But that was a big spike up bar back there. So if we get some more push, right, we could actually get a fairly good move to the downside. And this has been up so long, you have to respect that you could get a pullback, and one that's a little bit larger than what we're used to. If I look at it on the weekly time frame, the key bars in this area here, right? That was the last pause. Anything back into here probably is going to be a buy, but you want to let it come back in some. That's the gold stocks, and that was the question, should I be buying? As far as what you should be doing about the markets, and before I go to that, actually, let me look at something I haven't looked at because we have a little time tonight. Let me look at the, here we go, high quality corporate bonds. Let's see what these guys are doing. Okay, so they're holding here, had a nice run up, now they're holding, and wow, they're almost at the highs. So corporate debt, people are chasing yield, folks. They can't get it in bonds, and so they go to corporate debt. And so what do? They go to the high grade corporate bonds and buy those to get yield because they can't get it anywhere else. Let's see if what they're doing with the junk bonds. Are they doing the same thing? So you're at highs here on the daily, on the weekly. It's over the bearish retest regen. So again, they're buying junk bonds as well. And yeah, this can still trade even higher technically. And look at the volumes coming in here. People are chasing yield. People being, institutions, pension funds, and things like that. They're chasing yield where they can. And what they're doing, if you think about it, is this malfeasance that's taking place in terms of the central banks, is they're forcing everybody out onto these risk curves. Right? There's a lot more risk out here than there is in treasuries. There's even a lot more risk on corporate bonds, high quality corporate bonds, than there is treasuries. Yet that's where everybody's going because they can't get yield anywhere else, and they have to do it. And I bet municipal bonds are doing the same thing. And let's see what these look like on a longer term time frame. Yeah, they're up at the highs. Same thing, right? People coming into these because they can't get yield anywhere else. And when this turns, it's going to be ugly. Right now, it's working, and so it continues to work, and actually got an ABCD structure here that could lift, looks like it could lift a bit more. What do we got here? 103, and this high here, it's about 8, and we tacked down onto this one. That gets us about 115. Actually, it tagged it already. It's already tagged the top, which was that test. And let's see, that test came on 7 million. Yeah, about the same. Probably we'll try to tag it again. And then we might see this thing roll. All right, that's it for tonight. Where are we going to go tomorrow? I think the only people telling us anything, or the only test that we saw out there, was on the German markets saying that we're going to have a little pressure tomorrow, which probably parlays into a little pressure here to start the day. But I don't think much is going to happen until Yellen says whatever she wants to say. That's it for tonight. Have a great one. Thanks for joining me. Take care. Good night.